Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's session, How to Thrive in the Digital Landscape. It is great to see so many of you today. It's absolutely wonderful, and I hope you're all well. For those of you that don't know, my name is Gemma, and I am from the Expo North Digital team. Expo North Digital is Highlands and Islands enterprise mechanism for specialist digital advice support from the creative economy across the Highlands and Islands. This workshop is delivered through the Northern Innovation Hub, which is designed to build on and accelerate business innovation. It is funded through the Inverness and Highland City Region deal, which is a joint initiative supported by £315 million of investment from the UK and Scottish governments, Highland Council, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and the University of the Highlands and Islands. Without further ado, I am going to pass over to Mr. James Roberts. He is our fabulous digital specialist from our Expo North Digital team, and I hope you all enjoy today's session.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Gemma, and thanks for that lovely introduction there. Good afternoon, everyone. We are absolutely delighted to bring to you Alistair Miller and Renee Looper from Two Minds, who are a digital marketing training provider who provide personal training, digital marketing strategy, search engine optimization, and digital media, social media audits. And they will be telling us today how to thrive in the digital landscape. Thanks very much for joining us today, guys. With that, I'll pass across to you, Al. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And thank you, Gemma. I know you're still here in the background. As James just mentioned, my colleague Renee is here as well. And we're going to be talking to you and hopefully engaging with you guys over the next kind of 80 to 90 minutes. As Gemma mentioned, we do have a short break kind of planned in for the session. We don't have a set time on it. Normally people say, what time is the break coming up? Hopefully not to escape us, but purely just so they know when they can get that next cup of tea. It's going to come just after we do our kind of search engine optimization search kind of topic that's going to come forward. But before we get that, I'm just going to share on to the screen just now, so hopefully everyone should see it, the slide deck. What would be fab, I don't know about Rennie, but I actually don't recognize a lot of names that are joining us today. So if you do want to, please feel free to share in the chat who you are, what your business is, and where you're joining us from, and also potentially even where you heard about the event, which would be grand as well. Now, I'm just double checking at my side that the presentation has come through correctly. I think we're all good. I'm sure you'll let me know, Rennie, if it's not.
Yep, absolutely.
Sorry, I can see you now, James, and just get my cameras onto the screen. There we go. So as James mentioned, we're going to be talking about the digital landscape and how that changes and how you guys can try and maximize your presence in it. We've got quite a short agenda, or at least as far as we're concerned, we've got quite a short agenda that we're going to come through. As I mentioned, parts 1 and part 2, and then we'll give you guys a short break of probably about 10 or so minutes before we carry on with 3 to 5 as well. As Gemma mentioned as well, we're always happy to answer questions as we go throughout the session. Both myself and Rennie will keep an eye on the chat box on Zoom. So if you do have questions, please feel free to drop them in and we'll do our best to answer them as and when they come in. But we'll also be staying at the end to answer any questions.
I'm just
going to hand you over to Rennie. I'll let Rennie finally talk because you'll discover I talk for days. I'll hand over to Rennie, who'll do a short intro.
There's just no stopping you, is there? Right, everyone.
Just mute me, Rennie. You've got control. Just mute me when you're ready.
It's a duo presentation, but you'll find out that Alistair does most of the talking. He's unstoppable, especially when it's regarding digital. Yeah, I've just put in the chat. Let us know where you are based, your business name, and how did you hear about this webinar? And Rob has been the first one to respond. Freelance software developer based in Inverness. Oh, Rob, we need to talk to you. I know who Rob is, actually. Found the event on LinkedIn from Mark. Excellent. So that's works. Social media works, Alistair and James and Gemma. You see, put something on LinkedIn and people come to you. For the other people as well, don't hesitate to put in the chat your name, your business name, and also how did you hear about this event. It's actually quite good feedback for us as well. Yeah, thanks, Alistair. Two Minds, that's us, spelled in a sort of a funny Dutch way. Two Minds, we started in 2006 with digital marketing and specifically social media marketing. 2006 was more or less at the beginning of social media. So the first year I had to explain to my parents, what are you doing with Facebook and all that sort of stuff. Nobody sort of thought, well, Facebook is where you share your lunch and breakfast and pictures of your dog and cat and all that sort of stuff. But actually, there's quite a good sort of business element to it. So we started in 2006, more or less the first year, explaining to people what digital marketing is, social media marketing. Over the years, it was me and my wife, Pamela. She's on the left of that picture. And we started with the two of us, hence the name Two Minds. And over the years, we've grown our team to 6 people. Alistair is sort of the main sort of consultant, speaker, and business development. And we work very often together on these things. He's also very passionate about the business opportunities for social media, and that's what we're going to talk about. Don't be worried about today. Don't feel we're going to force you to use social media if you don't like it, or you should be on all the platforms. We're definitely not going to do. We're just going to show you the opportunities it might bring for you, and it's up to you to say, hey, yeah, that works for me, or that doesn't work for me, and everything. So, you know, we're not there to sort of force you into social media. It's I feel very strongly from a business perspective, it has lots of things to offer. The downside is time allocation, and no doubt that will come up. But again, that can be minimized as well. So I strongly believe, and Alistair as well, if you're spending hours on social media per day, you're doing it wrong, basically. Yeah. Cool. And I see in the chat that people are more sort of describing who they are and where they're coming from, and if they're and how did they hear about this. Like Alistair and James said, we deliver digital marketing and social media training. Before COVID, it was in person. We often went to Shetland, Orkney, Argyll, Skye, you name it. Now it's more or less online, which actually is quite good. But luckily, the sort of the in-person training is coming back as well. We do a lot of audits, digital audits for businesses as well, just to see where they are, and we love to support businesses with their digital journey. So I probably have taken too much time anyway already, Alistair.
Oh, you're grand. You're grand. Just letting you do your own thing.
So, like Alistair said, or Gemma actually said, you know, if you have a question while Alistair or myself is talking, put it in the chat, and then if it's a question that will be answered later, I will say, you know, yes, we're going to feature this later. If it's a question that is relevant to what Alistair is saying at that moment, I will interrupt. I'll try to interrupt Alistair to say, hey, Alistair, there's a question coming from Rob or from William. That's can you say more about this? So let's make it very interactive. You know, it's not just listening to us. What we always find is that people learn from each other as well. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you have your own experience, good or bad, with social media, put that in the chat as well. It's, you know, what might work for you might also work for another. And it's also good to get that interaction. So let's make it sort of fun and interactive. Cool. Alistair, over to you, I think.
Excellent. So I'm not going to, or I say I'm not going to, we tend not to do what we call death by PowerPoint. We don't really want to just sit here with 800 slides to try and motor through. And I know we've made lots of jokes about how much I love to talk, but we're going to do some demos as we go throughout the session as well. So I will be bringing onto the screen, for talking sake, some Google searches and maybe a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page and so on and so forth as we go through the session. If you do find that you want to be featured in this kind of session at all, again, please feel free to put in the chat a link to a social media profile of yours or a website side of things. I say it's always nicer if I can do live demos compared to stuff that I've kind of pre-scheduled as well. Okay, let's kind of dive into it. Thanks very much for that, Rennie, as well. Sorry. And we're going to start off by thinking about online visibility as a whole. Rennie's touched a lot on the social media aspect, and he also mentioned, obviously, they like to say websites and digital strategies and so on and so forth. But really what we're trying to think about is online as a whole. There's a lot of things that people nowadays just expect from businesses, and we all are probably quite guilty of that as well. And what I'm talking about that is maybe you're looking to go and buy something, or you're looking to go and stay somewhere, or go out with friends, whatever it is that you're doing. If you don't know where you want to go, you probably are going to gravitate to some sort of search, be that a search engine like Google, like Bing, like DuckDuckGo, one of the platforms. You might go to TripAdvisor, Visit Scotland, wherever it is, or it could be a social platform. So with that, for a lot of businesses, comes pressure. And I'd imagine there's probably a couple of people at least that have joined us today that find that digital is almost at the bottom of their list, that it's something that they almost feel like, do you know what, I need to almost have a completely different job just to keep on top of my Facebook page, my LinkedIn, my website, my online booking platform, my shop, my whatever you're running from that side. And as Rennie quite rightly points out, we're big believers in do the parts that you can do, learn about things to try and help upskill, but don't almost take on too many elements in one go, because that can be the trickiest part, and it just kind of almost sets yourself up for fail. But if we think about that initial journey that people are going to go on, as I mentioned, normally in some instances, we're talking about search engines. And I'm probably quite geeky. There's no other way to probably put that. But I do a lot of work, research in work and my personal time regarding search, the change in search, how people interact with different types of search and so on and so forth. But what I would love to know, oh, Rennie's actually just done it in the chat. What I would love to know is what search engine you guys currently use. Is it that you use Google? Are you in the slight minority and you're using Bing, or as it was recently rebranded, is it Microsoft Bing that you use? Or are you using something a little bit more niche? So we've got a couple of them on the screen. We've got DuckDuckGo and we've got Ecosia, which are two of the other kind of leading platforms. And I could actually see in the chat just now, Google is very much reigning king from that side. Anyone a Bing user, but they're a Bing user because they launch their browser and it takes them to Bing, and they type in google.co.uk into Bing, and silently Bill Gates is crying somewhere because everyone's leaving his search engine to go to Google. Maybe not. But what we can see from here is that a large portion of people gravitate to Google. And unsurprisingly enough, it's got about 85% of the market share. And that's actually, in Google's eyes, quite low. It might seem like a huge portion. Google, though, just seems to count trumps. And as a result, they impact a large portion of online visibility. And we're going to touch on a few of those things as we go through it today. And again, I'll do some demos as we go as well. I have mentioned Bing, and I've given you a little stat about obviously Google's usage. Bing's roughly about 7%, which again isn't a huge amount. And there's been lots and lots of articles that have come out about how a lot of people use Bing to get to Google or to get to wherever it is that they want to go. However, I think my chat's moved quite quick, so I do apologize if I get the wrong name. I think it was Rob mentioned that he's been using Bing for their AI integration.
Yep, that's correct.
Has drawn a huge portion. Again, I say huge when we talk percentages. It's not a massive percentage, but a lot of people are being drawn back into Microsoft or Bing through their embrace of AI. Now, we don't really have much on AI in today's session. I don't know if you want to say anything, Rennie, very briefly about AI, or
no. I'm just looking at the comments as well. It's indeed more not surprisingly, more Google and then a few people sort of Bing. Just a question as well. Are people aware of DuckDuckGo and Ecosia? I've asked that question in the chat as well, and some people said, yeah, I used to use Ecosia. Maybe you can say something about what DuckDuckGo is short.
Yeah, I was actually going to, once you had said about a little bit about AI, I was going to jump onto the two of them. But
no,
it's okay. DuckDuckGo grew in popularity purely because they don't look at as much stuff as Google does. they essentially don't have worrying amount of information on every search that happens. Google, as I'm sure we're all very aware, like Facebook, like Amazon, like pretty much everything online these days, tracks lots and lots of information. And we have seen recently there's been a big change in cookies policies on websites relating to what we're opting in and what we're opting out of. But DuckDuckGo grew in popularity, one, because it had a really nice and clean interface, So it wasn't very cluttered. They weren't throwing lots and lots of things at you. But they have a much smaller amount of information. And in some cases, they don't actually really gather or track anything off the back of it. It's very minute in comparison to Google. So it's almost a lot more private would be the way to put it as a search engine. Ecosia, the other one was mentioned, and again, I do apologize, my chat's kind of moved on. I think someone had mentioned, or a couple of people mentioned they're using Ecosia. Yep. Ecosia, again, is popular. It's not as popular or anywhere near as popular as the other ones, but it is growing in popularity, predominantly because they have their kind of mantra or motto is that they are the search engine that plants trees. So for the volume of searches that happens, they plant trees on behalf of their user base. Ecosia is incredibly popular in Germany. May seem strange. It's actually where the platform comes from originally. So their head office and their main server sites sit in the EU and in Germany as well. Again, quite a nice clean interface. Sorry, Ryan, I promise I'll be quiet in 1 second. Over the last 6 months, their volume of searching has drastically increased as far as they're concerned. But again, they're still not really rivaling any of the other searches. Sorry, Ren, I'll let you speak.
No, that's all good. No, I'm going to be very not generic, but in general, I find people that use Microsoft Bing tends to be a sort of a more mature sort of age demographic, maybe, if I'm putting it diplomatically.
Are you talking about my dad?
Yeah, my dad actually.
And if you're watching this, Dad, hello.
My dad, because when they buy a new computer, Bing is the default sort of browser, and they're not bothered, or they don't know how to change the browser and all that sort of stuff. So I guess that it's all. I mean, we're talking about digital marketing today. Digital marketing is nothing else than the traditional marketing, where you need to know your customer. That's the basic principle of marketing. You need to know your customer. Before social media, those marketing agencies had personas. I mean, we still have personas, but personas. So Mrs. A shops at Marks and Spencer's, buys what do you call that? Reads the Telegraph or the Times or something like that. And Mrs. B shops at Morrison so what marketing is sort of making sort of personas of people that you're trying to reach, and you probably have 4 to 5 different sort of personas, and probably even more of people that you want to sell to. Now these people have different behaviors, interests, pain points. They have different places where they browse, are they on Facebook, are they on LinkedIn, are they more on Twitter, and all that sort of stuff. So being aware of the people that you're trying to target, Alistair mentioned the German market, for example, is using Ecosia a lot. That gives you some sort of idea about, hey, if I want to target more Germans, then maybe we'll have a look at that search. And DuckDuckGo is targeting people that are more sort of aware, or not aware, but more cautious about their data that they share, because like Alistair said, Google, Facebook, and all these sort of platforms, they know a lot about us. So if you don't want to be involved in that, then DuckDuckGo type of people is a different persona than a Google person in a sense. And Ecosia, for example, is just sort of the very eco-friendly people. I'm probably not saying the right words here, but eco-aware sort of type of people. So again, it gives you. I think this slide is pretty good because it shows you that the trick with digital marketing is finding out more about your customer, and that's exactly what we're going to feature today as well. So hopefully. That gives you a little bit more information. Sorry, Alistair, for interrupting.
No, that's okay. The one thing that I actually also failed to point out is with Ecosia, if you are using Ecosia and you don't like Bing as a search output, I know a few people, again, in my chat has moved on, but someone had mentioned that the output from one of the other search engines wasn't as good as what Google was giving them.
That's right.
Ecosia actually uses Bing's database. So if you're trying to optimize something for a Bing search, you're actually also optimizing for Ecosia, would be the way to think about it, and vice versa. So it's worth being aware of, even though you're using a different search engine, is it actually a different search engine, or is it just housed in a different graphical format through, in theory, a different company as well.
Yeah, and if you do a search on Google, you do us not just now, but maybe
Don't leave us. Don't leave us. Go and do this.
During the break or after webinar. Do a search on Google for your business. Do the same on Bing, DuckDuckGo, and it goes just to see what comes up, and then maybe not do a search on your business, but a search on the service that you're selling. Do you get different sort of results on the different search engines? So that's sort of a nice sort of bit of thing to do if you have a little bit of time.
That's it. Don't leave us just now. We'll give you all the homework for during the break. So if we are thinking about starting our journey, or our customers starting their journey through the search engine, normally what I'll do, and I'm going to just do it just now, is we start off by bringing up search and going from there. Now, I've queued up a couple of little demos, more just for ease and to kind of keep the webinar moving from that side. But I'm going to talk you through a little bit about the output that comes from one of these searches. So we'll go for this one that I think the two of us were speaking about earlier, Rennie, which is Sandra Murray Bespoke. I don't know if we have, oh no, we do have Sandra with us. I'm sure we do. So do you mind if we do this, Sandra? If we use this just as a quick demo, I must stress, I'm not doing this because it's a bad thing. I'm doing it because there's lots of good things from that side. Is that okay with you, Sandra? Even if you give us a wee thumbs up in the, yeah, there we go, perfect. Okay, so I've got this demo up here. At the top, I've just put in, for talking's sake, business name to see what we get as an output. Now, down the main kind of column, we get all our search results that come with it. And we'll also see that Google's telling me roughly how many search results relate to the query that I've put in. So we have a frightening amount of queries coming off the back of it. However, thankfully, Sandra's website is towards the top. Now, when we start to look through it, what else do we get is what we're really looking for here. So we've got web pages getting outputted. We've got Instagram getting outputted down here. A few more things from the website. Over onto LinkedIn, which is great. So we can see websites, social media platforms coming off the back of it. We have Susan Reed collection, and then we've got a few other websites before it starts to kind of go further down the kind of food chain. Now, this in theory is a really good search output because we've put in looking for the business, and the business is right up at the top. And sometimes that isn't always the case, which is one of the sad parts. The other thing that we do get out here, and I know you're championing the bit to speak about this, Rennie, and I'll move it to in a wee second, is a Google business listing, which appears over at the right-hand side, where we can get lots and lots of different information about it. Now, before I unleash you, Rennie, I'm going to just swap to the tab that we've got a few, we'll swap to R1, just because it's probably easier for you to talk through it. Is that fair to say?
Sorry, yes, I muted me because I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah, that's all fine.
Do you want to do it just now?
Nope, you go for it.
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted to talk through this part. No, that's
no.
That's,
I just give you a signal to say I'm muted. I have nothing to say.
Oh,
so, like...
Okay. So what we have over at the right-hand side of our screen is like a hub of information relating to the business, and this is something that you can claim or create for free. It's called a Google Business Profile. At the end of the session, if I've not already, I will send some information to James with links. I'm sure James has probably got these, and you'll circle some of this with you guys as well at a later point. But if you don't have one, I would highly recommend that you do claim it. Now, or create one, sorry, if it doesn't already exist. Now, with this, we get lots of additional sections that we can feed information into, which is going to help guide search. So ignore that mine says work, and that's purely because I'm logged into my Google account and I've specified in my Google account that this is where I work, so it's picked up that I work here. So it's got the company name that sits here. We've got some branding that, again, we can control. We can put what we want into it. It's got some pictures. It's got a map. It's got reviews so that people can actually leave nice comments on it, and it gives us the capability to go back and reply to them as well. It's got opening hours, etc., etc. Now, if you don't feed this into it, Google may gather some of this generic information from the likes of, say, your website, your Facebook page, maybe a directory that you've registered on 16 years ago, because directories were popular at that point. But it will start to get some information. Now, what we don't want is that the information that's getting outputted there is wrong, which is, again, why I kind of implore you guys to create this free account, register this free profile, and make sure the information that you do have on there is up to date. If I scroll further down, you'll see that things like we've got some products listed, we've got other reviews getting pulled through from, say, like, say, Facebook, but we have another part which I would say is massively underused, and this is where we can actually add posts, like we're going to be looking at with like your social platforms. And some of you guys might be thinking, oh my goodness, you're now giving me another place I have to go and post content onto. However, what we can do is list events that we have coming up. So if I swap to, we'll jump to this one actually, which is today's event. So you can add your graphic, you can add some information, and you can push them off to a website. Now, what we're directly doing is feeding this into Google. So we're telling Google, hey, this event is happening on this day at this time. This is the location you can get your ticket from, etc., etc. And it's like you're tapping into it. Where the biggest, I suppose, trying to explain this without going too technical, the biggest pitfall that people have with search is the delay in time in which, if I make changes to my website now, how fast is that actively appearing in a search result? And sadly, that is normally about kind of 14 to 30 days for changes, or if it's something new, really by the time Google picks it up and gets more traffic to it and so on, so it takes a lot of time. This is instant. This is like your Facebook post. This is like your Instagram post. It goes onto your page and is fed into that search result as soon as you've hit that post button, unless it gets sent for verification or review, which is a minute and normally based on some language that you might have used. I say I would encourage you guys to use this if you don't already. Off the back of that, Google will also send you a lovely little email once a month to let you know how many times people have looked at your profile, have they used a map to find you, have they clicked to get your email address or to call you, but also what terms people have put into the search engine that has outputted your little profile as well.
Yeah, can I
go for it, Rennie?
Well, that's fantastic. If you go back to the one from Sandra, because I'm pretty sure people will be worried to say, well, I don't want to get my home address on Google. What I'll do actually, Alistair, I'll send a message just to you, so you can open this link and I'll show you the example. You don't have to give Google your home address. So this is a plumber, and as you can see, on the right-hand side, that Google business profile is his name. He forgot to put the word plumber next to it, but okay. But it doesn't show his home address. It shows the area that they sort of covering in that service. So if you, because Alistair is absolutely right, if you go back to TwoMind's Google business profile, that bit is extremely important, and that's why we're spending quite a bit on this before we go to social media. Extremely important to improve your search engine optimization, your SEO. Google actually gives you bonus points, let's call it that way, bonus points if you have reviews, if you respond to reviews even, which you always should do anyway. You keep it up to date, you upload photos, you upload events, you upload products in that sense. And me and Alistair went to a digital conference probably 4 years ago in Edinburgh.
Yep.
Catering Fest. There was a guy on SEO on the stage. He worked closely with Google and all this sort of stuff. 4 years ago, that guy said 48% of searches on Google are actually not resulting in a click to a website, because people on the right-hand side can see the address, the telephone number, the location, the opening times, and everything. So this was 4 years ago. 48% of people that do a search on Google is not resulting in a click. It's because people find the information they're looking for on the right-hand side. Yeah. And like Alistair said as well, this is Google. This is the first page on Google. So make full use of the benefits that Google Business Profile sort of offers. There is a question from India coming in. Can you schedule posts for Google Business Profile like Meta? There is a way to do it if you use a third-party application like Metricool or Hootsuite or all that sort of stuff. So yes, the answer is yes, you can do that. But when you do it, I actually did it this morning for another event. So you can go into your dashboard for Google Business Profile and create a sort of a post that you then sort of schedule. So for example, if you know in December you're going to do that an event or something like that, put it in there, because from today till December, that event will be on the front page of Google. Yeah. So SEO starts with this element of Google My Business. We offer a 3-hour workshop on Google Business Profile, so we can only feature a little bit of
scratch the surface.
Exactly. So, but just so you know. But yeah, you can schedule posts for Google Business Profile like Meta, but you need to use a third-party application like Metricool, Hootsuite, Later, Buffer, all that sort of.
Yeah, Buffer's got it as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Oh yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Is that you? Perfect. So if we jump past that slide, which we no longer need because of the demo of it instead, we then need to start thinking about what we're actually optimizing for. Now, I mentioned obviously 4 different search engines at the start of the session. There's also the voice factor that we kind of have to put into play as well. I don't know if anyone here actively uses voice search, be it in their house, be it on their mobile phone. Anyone else like to do a voice search?
Alexa?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it in case someone else has one.
I know, yeah, mine just don't.
I, unsurprisingly, or maybe surprisingly for some of you, and probably like you, Rennie, have a connected house is the way that I would put it. So I have far too many listening devices in my house that most rooms, other than probably the bathroom, all have like an Alexa-based device in my house. And I have 3 children, and they all assume that you can kind of walk into anyone's house, into anyone's room, and ask questions, and some magical lady in the corner will answer the question for you. Now, obviously, I'm, as I mentioned earlier, quite geeky, into my tech, so I appreciate that's not for everyone. However, from a younger age, more and more people are starting to get into that voice-based search. And I say this is why I'm kind of querying, does anyone else do it? But the optimization principle is still the same. And what we need to try and look at is, 1, what do people put into search engines? What's outputted and what we can actively control? Now, as I mentioned earlier with that Google Business Profile, one of the nice features of their monthly email that they send you across with your data about your profile is that they give you an indication of words that people have put in that have driven traffic, or at least have drawn people onto your profile or into your page from the search engine. Now, there's lots of ways that you can do this kind of research, and there's lots of different parts. If you have a website, which hopefully most of you guys will, or at least it'll be on your roadmap, is that you can control some of this mechanism. Now, if I again bring just back up the search, and I'll jump back to just Sandra's one just for ease, because it's not mine, which is just a nice change. I'm just going to point out what a couple of different terms mean that might come up throughout this afternoon at different points as well. The first one, and I'll just grab a random one that I'm highlighting in blue just now, is called a page title, which is, surprisingly enough, the title of that unique page in the website. It's not the whole website's title, it's that page's title. Now, that website might have 50 pages, it might have 5 pages. So they should all have unique titles that relate to that bit of content. The part that sits below it, which I'm highlighting in blue just now, is called either a meta description or just a description, is what most of us will drop it down to. And it should summarize, but also encourage people that this is the one that you want to click and not someone else. Now, in the search I've done here, we don't really have, for talking sake, a competitor on the screen, but imagine it's your business and 5 competitors, and your page title, again, this part here that I'm highlighting in blue, just says something like home, because it's your homepage, and that's really common. I can see Rennie kind of smiling away at this one, but it just says home, then maybe a hyphen, and then the business name. Does that tell them much? Well, yeah, it tells them it's the business name, and for whatever reason, it's got home on it. And again, if it has a description that doesn't really relate to that content, will I click yours or will I click someone else's? And what we're trying to do is drive as much of this to the right place. And that's really what Google always is trying to do. And working in search engine optimization or SEO, one of the biggest pain points probably of my working days when Google makes a big change to their algorithm and they change how they're going to output different things, because we then have to quickly change things and hope that they're not going to change it back or vice versa. But the key or the consistent factors that Google looks for, at least in the basis and the entry point for search engine optimization, is page title, page description, and then some good content on that website. So again, I would encourage you guys, if you do have a website, to put in your business name or your website address into here and look to see what the outputs are, and do these statements actually make sense for those individual pages, and the description that comes underneath it as well, is that actually relevant to it? Now, if you've not influenced this, and it will depend on how you've built your website, where you access this, the vast majority of website building tools will allow you to customize this piece of information. But if you haven't specified specifically the description part, which again is this bit that I'm highlighting in blue, it will normally pull the first bit of text that it can find on that page and pop that into the description. Now, I don't see it happening here, but I have seen websites in the past where that almost like 2 sentences that gets pulled through doesn't relate to anything at all. It might say instant quotes and a phone number and essentially some generic text that someone's had at the top of their website. Or I've actually seen in some cases that it has the words of their navigation, not even clickable, because it doesn't do it like that. It's just lifted like home, about us, services, contact, etc., which makes, again, no real sense or impact to someone that's searching. So when we're starting to think about this, as I mentioned, we need to be thinking about the wording that we want to be using to try and draw people in. And going back to what Rennie touched on, when we think about different demographics and we think about different searches, we think about different customers, we're going to have different phrases. And it can become very, very time consuming and tricky to get the exact wording and phrasing that you want. So I'm going to show you guys a quick tool, unsurprisingly, made by Google. You're going to see that this happens quite a few times, but it's made by Google. You can access it for free. It's called Google Search Console. Okay, I'm going to bring it onto the screen just now, and it's probably going to look like there's an awful lot going on, but I'm going to show you guys a little bit of information that you can glean from here. Now, when it loads, I get performance, which is just to do with the amount of clicks that my website's getting, and Google's reporting that to me, and it's private to me on my website. I get experience, etc., etc. But what I want to look at is the performance tab. And this is where I'm going to turn on these 2 other metrics. It's going to give me an output of some of these keywords that I want to be trying to think about, because ultimately I'm appearing for it. So ignoring this graph, I'm going to scroll down to the queries section. And because obviously time is of the essence, I'm just going to stick with what we've got on the screen just now. I'm going to ignore the brand name, which is our company name, which has appeared at the top. But straight away, I get this query. Can I separate my business page from my personal account on LinkedIn? I can see that we've got 15 clicks for it. We were seen 149 times for it, and the click-through rate is roughly 10%. And our position in the search engine is roughly 3.4. So we're 3rd or 4th for an output for that search. Now, if this is something I want to be found for, and I don't have content on it, I should be creating some content around this actual phrase because people are using it. Now,
what you're saying, Alistair, a query is a search term or search words that people have put in search engines.
Directly into the search engine.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to, again, just for time's sake, go through all this, but I've got over 1,000 different queries here or search terms that people have put in that I could then start to examine with the aim to adding some more of these wording and phrasings to key areas of my website. Now, as I mentioned, those initial key areas that you want to be trying to optimize them for as long as it relates to that page, is within these search outputs. So page titles, page descriptions, and then analyzing the actual quality of copy that you have on your website. The other nice thing that Google Search Console will do is allow you to tell Google exactly what pages you have on your website and what their individual addresses are. And what we don't want is that we're being outputted with pages that don't exist anymore, or historic pages that maybe you've forgotten even exist because your website's been there for 6 years, for talking sake. Now, just to kind of stick with this flow of that side, if I jump back into Search Console, we have a section called Sitemaps, where you can tell Google where your sitemap exists. Now, if you don't know where this is, and most people don't, because why would you if you've never heard of it before? What I would encourage you to do is to look to see what your website has been built with. Is it WordPress? Is it Squarespace? Is it Wix, etc., etc.? Or if someone's built it for you, you can ask them the question of where is your sitemap. Normally, you tend to find it's your website address / and then the word sitemap or sitemap.xml. Google will give you the exact answer for your different website builder tool where to find it, but then come into Search Console, put it in here and hit submit. And that's you basically signposting to Google, here is my website. Here is the 500 pages that we have. Please come and visit my website and show people it when they're searching for things.
Perfect. I think
anything you want to add on to that, Rennie?
Yeah, I think we're going towards the break as well, actually. If you go back to the two-mind search, there's one last thing before we go into the break. I would suggest having a break at 14:15, 2:15 for 10 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah. So a couple of minutes, that's grand.
Couple of minutes. So the other thing that I feel is very important, and again, I would encourage you to do a search on your own business, what comes up, and very often when people buy stuff, they look at reviews. And on the right-hand side, you have the reviews in the Google Business Profile there. And so before people go to the website, they already have a good feeling about the business. And I think first impressions always counts. So make sure, if you scroll down a little bit further, Alistair, there might be some Facebook reviews there as well. And I think so. Basically, we own page 1 of Google. You know, that is also because our name is quite unique, which helps, of course. But you know, it's all content that we want people to show. And very often, when people do a search in their business, another company might come up because they're using the same sort of keywords in that sense. So make sure you own page 1 of Google. Work on reviews. Ask people for reviews and respond to reviews. It's 14:14. Before we go to the break at 14:15, put in your question that you have just now, and we'll have a look at it over the break. We'll see you back at 14:20.
But before you do the break, Rennie, Jacqueline's just asked relating to Search Console. Can use analytics on Search Console.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that one.
Unfortunately, it only pulls in data relating to your website. However, and we will talk about this after the break, from a terminology, so where I was showing you the term was queries in Search Console, had all the words. We normally encourage people to use that as almost like food for thought for content creation for the social platforms. As I say, we'll look at that after the break.
Yeah, after the break, we go into the social media platforms. And we're going to do it in a very sort of paced sort of thing, because there are many sort of social media platforms, so we can only sort of give you an overview, but feel free to ask your questions. So I'll stop talking just now. I'll see you back at 14:25. Unmute yourself, put your cam off if you don't want it, and see you back in 10 minutes.
Excellent, guys. See you soon. Hey, Rennie.
Hello, here we are again.
Just a minute or so to go, and then we'll carry on.
No worries.
What we're expecting is like bing, bing, bing of lots of cameras and everyone happy and smiling. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've got
no one sneaked off. I checked.
and biscuits and all that sort of stuff. There we go. Yeah, very good. And if you have any questions about the previous bits, we knew This was the more sort of intense bit, if you like, about Google Search Console, Google Search, and all that sort of stuff, websites and everything. But before we delve into the social media, and that's what we're going to feature anyway, is the main goal objective you want to have with social media is to drive people back to your websites, to buy stuff, to email you, and all that sort of stuff. But if your website is not up to scratch, or the Google business profile is not great, then people aren't going to buy. So having your digital presence owning page one of Google is such an important element, and that's why we spend quite a bit of time on that. So social media is going to be a little bit quicker, because we can't really go into depth with every social media platform. There's not enough time for that. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask that in the comments. And welcome back, everybody. I think we're ready to go. Alistair.
I think we're good. Yep. Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed your short break. Looks like there was lots of people coming in with cups of tea and things like that, which is grand to see. On the screen just now, what I have done is I've got a slide with almost the key players, the key platforms that we have in the social media world these days. Some of them you'll be used to, some of them maybe not quite so much, some of them you might be terrified of, some of them you might spend a lot of time on. The big one that I'm going to quickly just touch on here before we kind of dive through this is, you might be thinking, where's Twitter? Twitter isn't here anymore, sadly. Well, it technically is. It's just been rebranded as X, which is a whole other conversation, which we won't dive into too deep. But that's what that black circle with the X, surprisingly enough, is on it as well. Now, what I have here is, I'm going to say 5 slides. It's probably about 6 or 7 in total, including some quick samples about different key platforms. And as Rennie quite rightly pointed out, what we try to encourage with digital marketing, and not just the website and not just the social media, is that it creates a cycle where you get people onto your website and hopefully they cross into your social media and they interact with you, and then they cross back into your website and do lots of other fun things, and then they go back into your social, and you can keep them, is the best way to put it. And they might then leave reviews, they might recommend you, and so on and so forth. Now, what we're going to touch on here is, I want to say I've roughly got 3 kind of pointers on each platform to consider. As I say, I appreciate time is of the essence, and I talk an awful lot. So we'll dive into the first one, which is Facebook. Rennie mentioned the kind of starting of Two Minds and how Facebook was in its early days, which now seems a frighteningly long time ago. Facebook is the one platform, and Instagram's almost following suit, that I normally say has an identity crisis, that it doesn't really know where it wants to be nowadays in the grand scheme of social media. It kind of picks and chooses new functions and features and stuff from other platforms. However, it is still the largest social media platform that we use from at least an English-speaking perspective. That if you go to China and Russia, yeah, we're going to get different social platforms, but Facebook reigns king, and still does. And as Rennie quite rightly mentioned earlier as well about search engines, we sometimes find with social platforms that, again, we have almost like specific demographics that are a lot more engaged on certain social platforms. And as we also mentioned in the intro, both myself and Rennie work with businesses of all shapes and sizes across Scotland over multiple years. And what I tend to find, and I'm sure Rennie probably gets the same as well, is when you look at the likes of, say, Stornoway or Shetland or Orkney, and now I'm in Inverness, and it's kind of the same here as well, is that even if Facebook isn't quite as cool as it used to be, it's still incredibly popular. There's still a very engaged community. And then when you take it to the much wider spectrum, and you're maybe thinking about maybe customers based in England or someone in Germany or someone in France, wherever it is, Facebook has a huge reach. Now, what I want to try and encourage you guys to do is to think about what you're actively posting and what types of things that you should be actively posting into your social platforms. And if we're thinking about Facebook, it has what I tend to call like a hierarchy or a preference of content type. The top one being video-based content. So if you use Facebook on a personal level, even ignoring the business side of things, you'll probably find your timeline has a growing, it might not be full of videos yet, but a growing number of videos in your feed. And normally people want to know why, or why should I post video instead of my 4 photos that I normally post, or something along those lines. But the reason why Facebook shows video is audience retention. They want to keep you on Facebook, not on TikTok, not on Pinterest, not on X, whatever other platform they're kind of battling at the moment. They want to keep you on their platform. And if you can watch a video that's 30 seconds long or 6 minutes long, that's 30 seconds or 6 minutes. They've kept you potentially longer than you going somewhere else for it. The other part, and it's a wee bit sneaky, is that Facebook, if your video is over a certain length, will show adverts. Yes, the dreaded advert break. It will show adverts and make money. And I think sometimes quite a lot of us forget that at the end of the day, Facebook is a business, even if we don't see it in that sense. And yeah, they've got to make revenue to keep the lights on. I don't think times are quite as tough as that over at Facebook, but they will show video content further than a normal post. So to help your pages thrive and go further, I would encourage you guys to at least explore or experiment with video formats. Or if you're feeling really brave, considering a Facebook Live, which is you ultimately doing a live video stream onto Facebook. If you are doing live video on Facebook, and really it's the same on all platforms, there are a few things you've got to be very aware of. One, if you've got music playing in the background, I can't remember who it was. I spoke to someone last week and they'd done tons of prep and they had a brilliant Facebook Live planned, but they kept the radio on and their Facebook Live was muted because they were playing for Talking Stick Radio 2 in the background and they don't have permission to play said artist through Facebook Live. So if you are thinking about doing a live, make sure that you're really planning it through, thinking about what you can and can't do, think about location, lighting, audio, etc. I can see you've unmuted, Rennie, so you want to jump in, I can tell.
Oh yeah, no, I would. No, it's like what you're saying there on the screen is very good at Facebook Lives, and I really want to emphasize that, and I know you're going to touch on it later anyway. Is you know, it's not just about you; it's about sharing content from other pages as well, which is a very important element of social media, which a lot of businesses forget. So the reason why I wanted to mute myself, because Nicole asked a question. You didn't list Pinterest, which actually we will feature later on. It's not part of the slideshow. We only have 80 minutes, Nicole. So, but I'd love to hear from you, Nicole, in the chat about your experience with Pinterest and if it actually does drive a lot of sales, traffic, and everything. Because you're absolutely right. Pinterest is indeed a very good platform for a lot of businesses as well, and we work with a lot of other businesses where the traffic from Pinterest is way higher than the traffic from Facebook. So it really depends on the different things. So that's the only thing I wanted to say, Alistair.
That's okay. As Rennie quite rightly pointed out, a lot of the time we forget that social media should be social. And as Rennie's kind of touching on, interacting with other businesses as your business, commenting, liking, sharing, etc., is really, really valuable, because you don't know what their audience will do and what they will see. And if you go and leave a nice comment about something or interact with it, there's a massive chance that you'll get like a knock-on effect off the back of it. The same goes for if there's, say, an industry piece of news. There's no point in you trying to reinvent the wheel to share that when you could share it from the direct source. And it also makes then potentially the wider audience know that you understand what's happening in your sector, or that you're aware of maybe legislation changes, for talking's sake, that's coming through as well. The other part, if pages are struggling, that you could consider with Facebook is that you can tap into their advertising platform. Again, to kind of go back to what Rennie mentioned, I feel like I'm doing that quite often, but to go back to what Rennie mentioned about demographics, Facebook probably knows more, if you have an account, but Facebook probably knows more about us individually than any other platform. And their targeting metrics that they actually have for running paid campaigns on their platform is impressively scary, is probably the best way to put it. Just how much you can drill down information. If you want to sell wooden rocking horses to grandparents who have grandkids that are aged 2 and like butterflies and also red dragons, you can do it. That you can really, really home in on that type of audience segmentation if you want to. So it's definitely a platform that I would recommend that businesses still embrace. Yeah, it's maybe not quite as cool and hip as some of the other platforms, especially with maybe a younger generation. But when you think about your target audience, it's a phenomenal resource to use. And thinking again back to when we did the search query, or I brought up the search page, the Google search, Facebook features really highly in search results. So again, thinking about online visibility, exposure, driving people to social, hopefully to your websites, to maybe get conversions or conversations. It's a fantastic tool for that. Anyone got any questions? I appreciate we're going to have to move quite quick on some of these, but anyone got any questions just on Facebook that I've maybe missed, Rennie?
No, I didn't see anything. So probably
that's okay. I'll move on to the next one. And I say, if you do have questions, guys, please feel free to drop them in. Following on from Facebook is the other platform that Facebook, or Meta, as technically they're called, also own. You may or may not be aware that they're related. I think most people do nowadays. Instagram is all visual-based content. No other way really to put it. Normally I'm talking about, hey, we need video, video, video. Sadly, Instagram also follows suit nowadays. So if you're using Instagram, and again, I would encourage you to do it. Even though I told you we weren't going to tell you to use everything, I'd really encourage you to use Instagram. If you have a visual-based product, it's a lot easier than if you're like a person or a service-based, but if it's a visual product that you've got, Instagram can be phenomenal for it. Again, trying to think about how to get more exposure on the platform. The two big focal points at the moment for Instagram are stories, which is the disappearing content that lasts 24 hours that appears at the top of feeds. It's your kind of disposable content would be the way to think about it. The kind of the here, the now, hey, I want to quickly promote that today, and it doesn't matter if it's gone tomorrow, etc. Or resharing older things to draw people's attention to it. The other one is Reels, which is essentially just another term for video on Instagram nowadays. A long time ago, Instagram tried to launch Instagram TV to rival YouTube. Didn't work, so they canned it. And as a result, they've now gone to something called Reels. Reels is Instagram essentially jumping on TikTok's bandwagon of full screen video experience is the way that they kind of pitch it. As I mentioned with Facebook, Instagram will showcase videos or reels a lot further than a standard-based post. So you do tend to find that views on reels is a lot higher than a standard Instagram post. Nice part about both reels and stories, and if I'm honest, also normal posting on both Facebook and Instagram, is that you can also tap into some analytical data around your account. So you can start to see geographically where people are based. If it's a reel, how long they've watched of it. Have they gone on to watch something else, or have they left? If it's stories, who's looked at it? Have they interacted with any of the features that you've put on your stories as well? So you can really do like a deep dive into how those pieces of content are performing. And it'll also give you a little update in the analytics, specifically on Instagram, to let you know what your top, they call it your top viral post, but really it's the most, so the post that's performing the highest, at least from a numbers perspective in their eyes. Now, the numbers in their eyes are views and engagements, which is likes, comments, and shares. Again, to help with exposure on Instagram, we used to historically be trying to convince people that hashtags were the way forward. And for a long period of time on Instagram, they were. We used to be able to have up to 30. We can kind of move on from that. Instagram's algorithm, which is a term I'm sure some of you guys will have heard before, which is ultimately how things are outputted in search, has evolved. It now actually functions more like your Google, your Bing, your DuckDuckGo, where people type in text and that's what gets brought out in search. So what we're encouraging people to do nowadays is to write some really good text with their content, which seems a little bit alien on Instagram because the visual was always the key element. Now, to relate that back to what I was speaking about before the break with Google Search Console, and someone actually asked the question, I would use some of the keywords and phrases that were in that queries category to try and use some of the exact wording and phrasing that I see people actively putting into search to find my website. I'll be feeding some of that into my content as well, as long as it's completely relevant. Don't just randomly drop words and phrases to try and manipulate things, but I'd be using some of that to help either write the text or to stem the idea of what the content could be.
We got a little bit of feedback from Jacqueline, by the way, Alistair, when I asked, is anyone doing well with Instagram? She said, I wouldn't say well, but it's my best outlet for sales and a slow build of followers now in Europe. Sales inquiries just from posting images. So,
well, if you're already kind of underway with images working, Reels, and I'm not sure if you're using stories or not, but those two elements would really help take that to the next level.
Excellent. And we only have 20 minutes left, by the way. Just
is that a subtle hint of
subtle, just a subtle hint?
I'm going to skip over my example there.
No. Just go back to the example.
I want to run through the platforms, then we'll do the examples after that. So
okay.
Just to make sure we cover all the bases.
And just so you know, India as well says, I agree. Most of our sales are through Instagram when we advertise. In terms of engagement, it has gone down a little bit in the last 2 years. That's definitely the case, India. That's very good. Haven't got my head around Reels yet. Reels, like Alistair said, is where you get the sort of the reach more as well. But two
Reels are all aimed at engagement, but reach is the big thing that Rennie's quite right to point out.
Thanks to India and Jacqueline for your comments. Well done.
Thanks, guys. As I mentioned at the start of this section, Twitter has had a rebrand. It's now X, and we did a little bit of digging prior to the session, or I say Rennie did, to see if we could find any of you guys on Twitter, which I always struggle to call it X, but on X. And we found a few of you guys. It looks as though there's quite a few of you that are actively engaged with the platform, either on a personal level or a business level from that side. It's in a strange spot now. Both myself and Rennie were very, very big Twitter advocates. And again, I appreciate I'm short on time, but I actually met Rennie originally through Twitter. I lived in Glasgow at the time. I now live back in Inverness, and Rennie was in Inverness. And I can't even remember how it kind of came about. At that point, I was working in web development. I think you might be looking for a web developer or something. And we ended up chatting, and however many years ago that is, probably about 12 years later, I've been working.
You sounded like it's a dating site, Alistair.
I wouldn't go as far. Someone, I think it was Gemma at the start, mentioned that we make a lovely couple, which I'm not sure if she picked up wrong.
Very good.
I'm sure if you really want to turn it into a dating site, you can. However, X or Twitter is normally text-based kind of communication. Always works better with a nice visual to make your content stand out in the feed. In most people's eyes, it's not the same as it used to be. It may or may not be the case. On a personal note, I don't use it as much as I used to since the rebrand. Platform just feels different for some reason. However, it can still be a really good engagement platform. Myself and Rennie attended a seminar in Aberdeen, I think it was last one, and like through Twitter kind of communication off the back, we had some nice conversations that were kind of going to and fro from there as well. So it can be a nice way of reaching out to engage with an audience. What I would say though is, with content creation, it probably requires arguably the most attention other than TikTok, as in activity levels. On the likes of, say, Facebook and Instagram, those platforms, if you look at the data, they'll say you should probably be posting once a day. TikTok's more. Twitter's even more for exposure. In most cases, data kind of shows that you should be actively tweeting about 5 or 6 times at least every day from that. And I know you mentioned it being a dating site. That's when it feels like you're having a relationship with Twitter or with X, because you have to put so much time and energy into it as a platform. Can still be a great hub. It's probably the one that out of all the platforms that we're going to talk about today that I would say, hey, you could take it or leave it if you wanted to.
Yeah, we're not getting good comments in the chat. Rob doesn't like it anymore, fallen out of love, and Nicole doesn't want anything to do with X. So
doesn't want anything to do in that case. I will move on. We'll skip that part and we'll come on to TikTok. Don't worry, Rennie, I know you're desperate to talk about these examples, but I'm going to come back to them. TikTok I mentioned slightly earlier when we're talking about Instagram as well. Anyone using TikTok for their business? Rennie straight away with a hand up. Rennie's using TikTok. Anyone else using TikTok? TikTok is video-based content. You can post photos onto it in their kind of story format or create slideshows with photos, but their whole brand ethos is full screen, sound on content. Now that can be educational video on how to make a spreadsheet work better. It can be someone showcasing a car, to someone taking their dog for a walk, to dancing trends that seem to get incredibly popular over the pandemic. There is a frightening wealth of, I would say, good information on TikTok that I think a lot of people are arguably missing out on. I know you're quite passionate about that side of things, Rani, that there's a lot out there that people neglect because they think TikTok's all about dancing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, as you know, Alistair, for years we've been keeping an eye on TikTok, and probably until 2-3 years ago, I would have said for business use, no, that's not where your target audience is hanging out. But that has changed. I now see it's no longer dancing teenagers, although they're still there. But I see estate agents on TikTok, lawyers on TikTok. And they actually get a very good result. I know you've got one very good example of one of our clients, Alistair, later on as well on TikTok. It actually transformed their business. They were, and I know you're going to say something about it, so I'm not going to do that, but it's something to have a look at. And what I like about TikTok, it's you don't need a huge audience like 10,000 followers that you need on Instagram to make some sort of impact. On TikTok, you can have 100 followers, 50 followers, and still make a real impact. So that's why I like it. And it's very educational as well, I have to say.
The one thing that, just before I move on from TikTok onto the next platform, is if you do create a TikTok account, TikTok has probably the fastest inbuilt learning mechanism. And what I mean by that is, if when you create your account, you first log in, it doesn't know what you want to see. So it'll just give you anything that's popular. When you then start to do searches, it will learn probably within about 3 swipes of your finger, this is the kind of content you want based on that search. And if you don't want it to, as we kind of keep making jokes about the dancing kind of aspect or the kind of viral meme rubbish that you get on it, it will learn really quick you don't want that and start to show you more and more stuff relating to that. So don't be frightened of giving it a shot, at least from a research perspective, even if you don't want to dive in with it yet. On to probably my favorite from like a business perspective, which is LinkedIn. And again, I know Rennie's in the chat probably asking you guys, do you use LinkedIn? And have you got a company page, etc.? LinkedIn is, or brands itself as the professional social network and the largest professional social network that there is out there. It is a phenomenal place for building networks. I know some of you guys might like to do this, some of you might really dislike doing this, but the kind of face-to-face networking where you maybe go to breakfast and hand out business cards and someone stands up and tries to sell you insurance, etc. LinkedIn is like a digital version of that you have complete control of, as in you pick who your network is. You can send out connection requests, and if they accept yes, you can then talk to that person. And it is a phenomenal tool for reach and telling people who you are, what you do, as long as you don't turn it into a soapbox for trying to just drive sales.
Yeah.
People that struggle on LinkedIn are the people that every post is, this is my product, buy it now. This is my product, buy it now type of content. Or the people that when they connect with a person, send them a private message, which says, this is my product, buy it now. Yeah, as a business, we want to generate revenue. But the way that I would do it is you want the subliminal sale. You want to build the rapport. You want to build the network. You don't just want to hit them with a sales message.
No, I agree, Alistair. And sales is all about relationship building. Before people buy from you, they need to first know you, trust you, and ideally like you. And that works really well on social media and LinkedIn sort of presence. And I think we're on a winner here, Alistair, because Rob loves LinkedIn. And Lisa says, very useful for my business. And that's
quite the difference from Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what we're trying to do here, is sort of let you know that the different sort of platforms have different sort of audiences, demographics, interest and all that sort of stuff. So that's why we're doing this, making you aware of it. Not every platform will be beneficial for you, but use the one that are beneficial for you.
Now, before we jump into some examples, because again, I'm very aware of time, what I want to touch on is social media is, for some people, very difficult, partly because of time or knowing what the right thing is to post. One of the big kind of things that we hear a lot is, I would love to post, I just don't know, or I'll second guess myself about what I should be putting out there. Now, on the screen just now, I've got, at least in my eyes, quite a nice way of breaking down different types of content and thinking about the goals that you want to achieve from social media. Normally, the starting point is, before you even create a profile on social media, is what do you want to try and get from the platform? And is this the right platform for me? And that's why we've ran through the platforms. But thinking about what you want to try and achieve from it, hopefully this graphic here will help you with some content ideas that you might already have or might be able to stem off the back of. So we've broken this down into brand awareness, shared content, traffic drivers are a way of driving traffic to your website, helpful content, and storytelling. Historically, when we used to talk about social media content, we used to talk about either 70-30 or 80-20 for almost like your generic content to your sales content or your fun content to your sales content. I prefer to look at it in this way, and there's always going to be parts where a storytelling piece of content is actually a sales piece of content, because the story is actually the part which subliminally sells them the product, the service, the experience, etc. Yeah. Sorry, Ren, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just so you know, I see a lot of people writing as well. We will share the slides actually with you. Keep writing, it's all good. I write stuff as well, but we will share the slides with you as well, because obviously we don't have the time to go through all these things.
What I would normally say is the ones that get the highest engagement rates are the ones that people actually put time and energy into planning. The ones that flop, other than the odd viral piece of content that no one really knows why it's gone well. The ones that work well, as I say, are the ones that people's put a bit of thought and love into actually crafting the piece of content. Normally the easier ones are the storytelling ones nowadays, especially if we're thinking about video-based content being king on all the social platforms. They all want video nowadays. Doesn't mean the other things don't work, but they prefer video. And the kind of behind the scenes, the meet the team, the time-lapse video of you finishing a piece of jewelry or packing a box with something that you've made in for getting shipped. Those types of content tend to do phenomenally well on the platform. And as Rennie mentioned, I've got a TikTok example that I'm going to bring onto the screen just now of business based in Shetland that we've worked with. Oh, was it about 6 months ago, Rennie? I might be wrong on my dates. We've worked with them for a period of time, and they identified off the back of advice that TikTok was actually a place to be for them. You may or may not know the business, based in Shetland, and hopefully you should be seeing TikTok on the screen. I'm sure Rennie will let me know if you're not. Perfect. This is their TikTok account, and they weren't really using TikTok before. And one of their kind of recommendations was, hey, let's try and bring this to life, create some fun video content because you're showing this on other platforms, and TikTok would be right for you from this. And just to, before I even go into any of the content, I don't know how well you guys see this on the screen, but this one here in the middle, which says Scottish Tablet, has had 1.9 million plays. Just an example there. Over 10,000 plays, over 37,000 plays, 84,000 plays, etc., etc. Their TikTok account is doing frighteningly well. And it's partly because they're now really putting in a lot of time and effort to it, but they're also having fun with it. Now, I'm going to quickly just pick one. We'll go for this 1.9 million because surely 1.9 million people can't be wrong. But I'm going to play it, and I'm going to assume that you're probably going to get the sound through it as well. So apologies if this is loud. Again, I'm sure Rennie will let me know if it's a wee bit too loud.
Scottish Tablet. We make our this tablet up our kitchen in Shetland, and it's all handmade using local ingredients. Scottish Tablet is a really traditional thing we have at weddings and parties. It's kind of at a celebration event, and we make ours using local butter and Shetland milk. Now,
I've paused it about halfway through. We don't probably need to see, unless anyone wants to see the end of the tablet, in which case I'm sure you can jump onto the TikTok account to see it. but hopefully what you've kind of seen from that alone is it's a bit of a time-lapse video. Yeah, it's sped up to show production of something. And then the lady in her lovely Shetland accent has just put a bit of a story to it. And this is one of the probably the success factors with their accounts, is that they're not afraid to talk. And I know myself, and I always feel sorry for like you guys having to listen to me talk. When you're recording something, it's your own voice and you have to edit it and listen to it and stuff. It can be quite hard going at times, but they've just embraced that aspect and ran with it. And obviously she's got a lovely accent, which you'll see in the comments, like the top one here. The Shetland accent always baffles me when I first hear it. There's always comments about the accent, but that helps the account thrive even further. And off the back of that, they've kind of contacted us to say, like, our business is doing phenomenally well. Thank you. So I say, don't be afraid to give storytelling content a go. Go for it, Rennie. I can see your desk.
When I spoke to her a couple of months ago, her sales went up 900%. They were actually close to, shall we continue with the shop, or then they used TikTok, and their sales have gone up 900%. And this is not just one example. I know of more examples as well. So have a look at that. Just so you know, Alistair, we only have 4 minutes left.
Oh, I'm on time. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay. So on the trying to dedicate some time to it, I would normally encourage you to try and plan content in advance. There'll always be this is happening now and we want to tell people content. And that's phenomenal. That's brilliant. That's stuff that's hot off the press and you want to get out there. But with some of your other bits of content, it's maybe about thinking before you maybe do a task in work. And again, I appreciate it takes time, but you could be thinking, is this something that'd be worth creating some content around, and planning maybe a little bit of that in advance? What do you need? Have you got your phone, for talking sake, handy to take some photos or record some videos? How's the light in the air and the room, for talking sake, the audio, etc., etc. But until you start thinking about this, it's a little bit tricky to get your head around. And what I always say to people is, create content that even you don't have to share. You can create content just to get to grips with the process, how you're feeling about it. Is it for you? Is it not for you? Is it something that you could work with, etc.? But try and dedicate some time to it. On the planning stage as well, most of the platforms nowadays have an integrated solution for scheduling content. Again, apologies, I can't remember who asked about it, relating to Google My Business or Google Business Profile, sorry. But in Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, you can access Meta Business Suite to schedule content. In Twitter or X, there's now a little clock that you can click to schedule when your tweets go out or your posts go out. LinkedIn has it both for a personal page and a company page. YouTube has it that you can schedule content. The only one that doesn't is TikTok. And they've actively said it's not something that they want to add because they want content to be fresh and posted now when you've made it, etc. There are third-party apps. Again, Rennie mentioned some of these earlier, later, Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, that allow you to access that sharing capability for TikTok if you want it. In Meta Business Suites, and it's quite unique to Facebook and Instagram, they actually have a recommendation for when you should consider posting based on your audience. So again, if you're stumped with when should I post, what time should I post, what day of the week to post, they'll actually help guide you with that. Again, you don't have to follow it, but they'll try and point you in the right direction based on when your audience is online. Now, just to kind of wrap things up, Rennie has prepared 5 little tips for you. No, I'm joking. Both myself and Rennie have put these 5 tips together that you'll see relate to the different topics that we've had to power through because I talk far too much in this afternoon's session. And what I would encourage you guys to do is, hey, you don't have to tackle all 5, but start somewhere in this list and start exploring what you are currently doing and what you could be doing to take things further forward. Anything you want to add, Rennie?
Yeah, no, I've asked in the chat any questions you want to ask before we close, because we've got 1 minute left, or you can talk. But hopefully it's all been good and of interest. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. These are today's tasks, or for the next couple of weeks. Like we showed you, Google Business Profile, review current websites, engage with other businesses, review analytics, and download the social media content calendar. Now, where do you find the social media content calendar? You can find it on our website, is it not?
Yep, on twominds.com, you can access a free social media calendar.
Thanks for showing this. This is the sort of service that we provide, but we have to move on from this. So if you go to our website, the social media content calendar can still be downloaded. Yep. I think. Yep. twominds.com. Click on the navigation, and you can download the social media calendar, which makes it easier to plan your social media. So it's 3 o'clock now. That's it. We would love to hear your questions, and I will add back to Jem as well. So if you have any questions, put it in the question box or in the chat box before we close, and I'll hand over to Gemma.
That was absolutely excellent. Thank you ever so much. That was so good. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And I certainly picked up on a lot of tips today as well. I've been scribbling away in the background, taking some notes. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed today's session, and I hope you found it a valuable use of your time. Please don't forget, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our website, www.exponorth.co.uk, where you can also sign up to our newsletter to keep up to date with everything that we are doing. The website is also where you can complete one of our inquiry forms. You know, if you're looking for advice and assistance from one of our Expo North digital specialists. So please keep this in mind. If there's anything at all that you think that we could maybe assist you with, please fill the form out, and we will get back in touch with you. You'll also find on our website our video archive of all previous workshops and webinars that you can watch back at your leisure. So please check this out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck with everything, and have fun.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.